From his studio in California, help me welcome Peter Browngardt.
Everyone, hi home, Sag Harbor, from Los Angeles.
Pete, I'll start with a couple of questions, and then you raise your hand if you have something to ask. But Daffy and Porky are two pretty big characters. I mean, the Looney Tunes are everybody's heroes. How scary for for an animator to embark on a Looney Tune feature?
Yeah, it was very, very intimidating. As a fan growing up, loving the classic shorts that are part of our culture and the world's culture, and these characters are very important. They're sort of our I like to think of them as mirrors to the world, or caricatures of our world and a satire of our world, and they help us laugh through all the craziness of our lives. So taking them on and trying to carry the torch of their legacy is very intimidating. But I felt I had an understanding of what to do with it, and I sort of came from being a student of them and a student of the Looney Tunes, and really studying them and loving them. I felt like I could contribute, and it was very intimidating, but I also knew a great team of people that also loved the Looney Tunes like I did, and didn't have a chance to sort of take a stab at them and create with them. So it was really fun.
What is it about the Porky's and Daffy's personalities that you picked those two?
Oh yeah, so the big reason why we didn't do Bugs Bunny is because we felt like it was a harder in, or I felt like it was a harder in for a larger story and emotional story. Porky and Daffy have a tradition in the old shorts of being buddies, being friends and sort of roommates, and they've gone on adventures together. They've also played in a lot of genre shorts like Duck Dodgers, or they'll play detectives and Deduce You Say or Rocket Squad. And they are the only Looney Tunes duo that don't want to eat each other. Usually the Looney Tunes want to eat each other, so Bugs and Elmer, or Yosemite Sam, or Tweety and Sylvester. So I thought it was good to have characters that don't want to eat each other, and you could tell an emotional tale of buddies living together. And I knew to be able to tell a Looney Tunes movie, we needed an emotional story, a relationship story happening there, and to engage an audience for 90 minutes, and not just be dynamite jokes and hitting each other over the head with the mallets. It had to have a little bit more than that, even though I love that stuff too, and the jokes are great. But
you were telling me upstairs a little bit about how this film was all hand drawn. Can you and you showed a little bit, how it did.
Oh yeah. So yeah, this was traditionally drawn in the sense of actually some people did work on paper still, but we work on these Cintiq screens, these sort of drawing screens, and you draw with this digitizing pen. It's like an iPad, it's like an Apple Pencil and an iPad. And yeah, everything was traditionally in between, meaning the computer didn't assist us on the middle drawings from what character running across the street. Everything was drawn frame by frame like they did in Pinocchio or Dumbo or all the classic animated shorts. But the computer helps us with a lot of parts of the process, like the cleanup line, or coloring, or compositing the image together. But everything is made more efficient that way, and brings budget costs and production costs down because of that.
And visually, because there is a big gamut of Looney Tunes, over the years. Visually, what were your main inspiration? I mean, the Looney Tunes were designed by incredible animator, Chuck Jones, Tex Avery, Bob Clampett.
Right. Yeah. So I always felt the Looney Tunes, they had 4 decades to create the Looney Tunes, and they kind of spanned our, the Depression era of our country, the war times in the 40s, and then the sort of 50s optimism. And they reflect all of that. And the style kind of reflected that as well. Like the early ones were more rendered, the backgrounds and the art direction was more rendered. And then the 40s was more of a sort of a roughness to them as well. And then the 50s were more clean and more modern, definitely influenced by modern art and the postmodern movement and stuff like that. So I wanted to explore all style in Looney Tunes, because I felt like there wasn't a set style. It evolved. So it gave our designers and myself sort of a license to play around with style. That's why we have that part in the film that's like a Busby Berkeley kind of Art Deco inspired piece. And we have the Farmer Jim stuff was heavily inspired by Thomas Hart Benton, the great American painter. And then like the Gum Monster stuff is like straight up Evil Dead, Sam Raimi sort of horror. And then the other influences are like the day the Earth, obviously the day the Earth stood still, but also Invasion of the Body Snatchers, War of the World, Ed Wood movies. I loved Tim Burton as a kid. I was obsessed with all things Tim Burton as a child growing up in Sag Harbor. So that was a big influence. And he kind of turned me on, like learning about his career and his influences. I explored, 50s B movies and horror films, Hammer horror films and stuff like that. And definitely was influenced by that as well.
And you went to Cal Arts as well, Tim Burton School,
yes.
right?
Yes, and that's one of the reasons. Like Paul Rubens, who's Pee Wee Herman, went there, and Kramer, and Tim Burton, and a lot of others. David Hasselhoff went there. That's not one of the reasons I went, but he did go there. But yeah, a lot of animators too, like Brad Bird and Henry Selick and John Lasseter. It was sort of Disney's school for animation, and at that time there wasn't really much internet or anything like that or self-education. It was like Cal Arts or SVA. There's a few schools around the country that taught animation. Now there's a lot more. Education's a lot more broad, but yeah, it was. And I had my sights set on that at a very, very early age. My brother told me about it. I remember at like 7 or 8 years old, and it was like, yeah, well, that's where I want to go. If that's where they went, so, and it actually worked out. So it was amazing.
Raise your hand. Do you have any question? There is one right here. Just the microphone.
So it's a great movie. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good to see Porky and Daffy back together again in 2025. You had some interesting music in it, and I wondered how difficult it was getting REM, Bryan Adams, and those guys on board to let you use their music.
Yeah, so that's good. We didn't initially have them in there. And when you're making this stuff, we build animatics, which are sort of rough storyboard comic strip, time to music, time to sound, and the voices. We record the voices first, we draw it all out, and then we time it out. And the editor and I would just throw in songs to sort of capture the mood. And we never dreamed that we'd be able to get REM or Bryan Adams. The Bryan Adams thing was a total joke that we put in there, and it makes people laugh. And then the executives were like, well, let's try to do it. Let's try to get it. So they were, I think because they were liking what they saw with the film, they approved additional budgetary costs to let us license those songs. Cause let me tell you, they're not cheap. And it was really nice that they had faith in the project and were willing to approve it. And so we didn't have to get like a sound alike or just do an orchestral kind of version or something like that sort of feels like it, but it's not really it. But yeah, they just fit the tone and the mood. And I think Warner Brothers Animation was really targeting this as wanting to feel like a big movie. So they wanted to, get those pop songs in there to help that feel and drive the story.
There's one question down there.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah. So much fun. But I have two quick questions. So first, did I see a Yosemite Sam cameo? And second, in the credits, it said something about stop action. There was a stop action credit. Yes. And could you tell me where that was in the film?
So the stop motion is the very beginning, after the scientist discovers the fallen item, and it goes to the dropping of the book. That book is stop motion. The family album that opens up, and we go in and we see Porky and Daffy as kids. That's stop motion. Actually, got it right here. You can see it right here. There it is, and it opens up. And let's see if I can find the page. There's all the pictures of them as kids. And then I'm not sure about the Yosemite Sam cameo. Not that I've ever noticed, but maybe some animator or one of the designers snuck something in and got it past me. So I wouldn't put it past those guys. They're pretty crazy.
Do you have a question? Yeah. It's getting you the mic. Hold on.
Do you have any other things? Do you have any other things that we could watch?
Other things. Oh, I made a series for Cartoon Network called Uncle
Uncle
Grandpa.
Grandpa. Yeah, I've watched that
Yeah, I
before.
did Uncle Grandpa, and I think that's still on Hulu. So you
Yeah,
can, if you have
it is.
Hulu, you can watch it there.
I remember
Or you
watching
can
it on
buy it on
Cartoon
Apple or
Network.
something like that, or Prime, Amazon Prime.
Also, I remember hearing that you like voiced someone on SpongeBob or something, or was that someone else? Oh,
Yes, I
that
did.
was you.
I'm the voice of the Ice Cream King in
The Ice
4
Cream King.
episodes of SpongeBob. So far, 4 episodes. Let's hope they do more.
Nice.
And you worked on some of the Looney Tune shorts, right?
Yes, I did. We did 209 new original Looney Tune shorts that are on Max. It was for HBO Max, but now it's called Max. And they're still up there. That sort of primed our crew to make this movie. So we jumped in and we started making these shorts, and they're a love letter to the classic shorts in various lengths, none longer than 6.5 minutes long. But they're basically, my pitch to get that made was, let's just keep trying to make the shorts like they made them as much as we can in the modern age. So yeah, and that, putting together that team, we were able to learn how to make this movie, because if we were to just start making this movie without that experience, it would have been a lot more difficult and maybe not as successful.
I think you were saying before that if I understood correctly, that you were already knew that you wanted to be an animator, or work in, when you were like 6.
Yeah, 7 or 6 or 7 or 8. I had an older brother that was really into filmmaking, and actually my whole family was very creative. My older brother Carl, who's in the audience, he was big into the acting, and they would make movies together. Tom and Carl would make horror movies, and I was always around the sort of, I understood how things were made, that it wasn't just magic. It was actually, there's people behind the scenes creating these things, and they would show these. They would chopping off their neighborhood kid's head, and we'd show them in the living room of my house, and I'd see them and I'd cry, and I thought it was real, but then I realized they showed me the special effect that they made, and I realized it wasn't real. So I got this sort of firsthand seat at a very early age about the process of filmmaking and even animation. And my brother Tom was always an artist as well, drawing a lot, and he initially wanted to be an animator, and he taught me about how animation is done. So with a Super 8 camera and an old animation board that my father helped build, Tom, my father's there too. We would punch holes in typing paper, and I'd animate and shoot on Super 8. And I still have the Super 8 films that I made. And then it got more and more involved, and I did some stop motion films while I was in high school, and some live action films. And I was just always interested in cinema and the moving arts in that sense.
And
Yeah.
there are a few kids here that look they could be around 5 or 6. And what would you
Yeah,
tell
I
them?
mean,
What would you tell them to do if they want to start getting a little bit more into animation, or try to design something?
I would experiment. There's so many ways to do it now with an iPhone or with anything. I mean, one app is better than I could ever have imagined having when I was 7 years old. So the technology has made it so available, and YouTube is full of information and instructional videos of how to do things, and just make things that make yourself laugh. I think that's learn how to entertain and make yourself laugh, because if you make yourself laugh with little animations and stuff like that, you're going to make other people laugh, and that becomes a little bit of an addiction. And you want to be an entertainer, you want to make people laugh. And I always loved that. I always sort of either would do a funny drawing in class, or I would try to make something to get a reaction out of somebody. And I think that's the core of sort of entertainment and storytelling in a lot of ways, is you're presenting information to somebody to get a reaction from, or to touch or change or make them cry or laugh or whatever. So I would do that.
There's a question behind there.
Thank you. My question is just that during storyboarding, were there scenes or plots that your team put in or took out because you were deciding maybe this is too modern, maybe this is too retro? Like we all saw that influencer scene that was obviously hilarious, but it's very modern now. What made you make that type of
Right,
decision?
that's a great question. Yeah. There is that concern of like, well, you don't want it to feel too old fashioned, because it is a modern film, but then you don't want to be like cringy and be like, oh, they're doing a parody of Hamilton, and is that going to really last? And, because that's sort of what they did with Looney Tunes and some other things like in recent years or in the 90s. So my theory on that was, and I got this from The Simpsons, I read something about the making of The Simpsons or how the writers work on The Simpsons, is that if something continues to make you laugh or is humorous over and over, the more you see it, because animation is a process. It's literally like making a film in slow motion. It takes forever. 4 years of my life went into this film, and you're looking at the stuff over and over again. And when you look at anything over and over again, human nature is you kind of get sick of it. So the 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 rule of thumb was if it continues to make us chuckle, we still think there's something to it after watching it over and over again. Uh, then we felt like it warranted the film and deserved to be finished. Especially like we definitely have some pop culture references in there of Daffy twerking or the Starbucks, joke or the rideshare joke, stuff like that. And the rule with that stuff, and not to make it feel too dated, was that it had to be parroting or making fun of or satirizing something that's now ingrained in our culture. Like social media is not going away. Rideshare is not going away. Things that have now they've passed that thing of just of sort of a famous pop song or a famous sort of one hit wonder kind of moment in our culture, but it's sort of something that's sustained in our culture now, and it's gonna remain in our culture for, I believe, for a very long time. So it felt like an obvious thing that the Looney Tunes would sort of make fun of or play with.
Question? No. Okay. Well, sci-fi is also something that you've introduced. When did you decide that you want to introduce that element in the film, and why?
Very early. I wanted to definitely put tell us a genre film, and I love sci-fi genre. I love horror genre. I love sci-fi because it does a lot of work for you in the sense of it gives you sort of a defined sandbox to build your castle in. Because if you just go, it's just a random everyday movie and whatever, and it doesn't give you rules to sort of satirize and play with and form. It gives you a form to sort of sculpt to start with, right? So I love sci-fi, and I also thought it was rich. There was the Duck Dodger shorts that we took into consideration, but I just felt like, and a big inspiration for the film was the old Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein, the Abbott and Costello films, and those were always like, if you look at that, that's a duo comedy, iconic character actors, comedians, and they were thrown into these genres, and then you wanted to see what would happen. So I thought that was a good sort of formula to go, well, what if that's what you should be doing with these Looney Tunes characters? So, and it makes it just does a lot of work for you as a filmmaker and as a storyteller to sort of know where you're going with it and what the rules are in a little bit, especially with cartoons, when you're cartooning something.
And how important do you think is that these cartoons are seen on a big screen rather than at home on television?
The most important. I feel like cinema it only truly works in the big screen with an audience, a communal experience. It's designed that way, and that's sort of the magic of cinema, is being able to watch it, especially animation. I had this wonderful experience, and I believe I was in either 8th grade or 9th grade. My brother Tom took me to the Museum of Moving Image in Queens, and Chuck Jones was touring the country with his book. He wrote an autobiography, and they screened like maybe 10 or 12 or 15 of his classic shorts. And I'd never seen classic animated shorts in a theater before in my life. Prior to that, it was the first time. And given that these are probably all Looney Tunes fans at that screening, but the laughter and the happiness and the experience of that screening, it changed my life forever. I was just like, what? It showed you the power and how magical those classic shorts and how funny they are, and how they speak to all ages and all cultures, and you don't need an instruction book to know what's going on. You can just sit back and watch it and be entertained, and it's such pure forms of film comedy. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Well, then I'll. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I did. I didn't see you there.
Hi. Just kind of curious, how like how much work did it take to get them to like green light this? Like how hard was it for you to get people going on this project?
Well, it's it's always a journey making anything in Hollywood or any film, and regardless. Um, so basically, the shorts did really well on HBO Max, and we won some awards, and we got some good reviews, and people like them. Um, and then the streaming pandemic, actually prior to the pandemic, the streaming boom was happening, and people were spending money. And initially, they were like, why don't you have any ideas for a long form Looney Tunes film? So I went away and I came up with this. And I put a pitch together, and I went back to the studio executives and I pitched it, and they liked it. So we worked on the pitch a little bit more with their feedback and went into development. Then we pitched it to HBO Max as a streaming film, not as a theatrical film, and we got greenlit for that. And we got the same budget as we did for the final film, and we went into production. But then there was another Hollywood corporate merger, and Warner Brothers changed hands again. And the new leadership at Warner Brothers wanted to save some money, so they started cutting a lot of projects, and we basically got cut. But they did give permission, because we were in production already, that we could shop the film outside of the studio, meaning we were allowed to take the project and go to Amazon or Netflix or Paramount or Fox or whoever and see if they wanted to purchase the film from Warner Brothers. So I put together another pitch of what the whole film would be, and using the stuff that we've been working on. And we went out and we shopped it all around, and nobody wanted to make it. So I go, okay, well, there's two nails in my coffin, or am I, is it over? And then they got this idea of going international theatrical distribution. So we met with Warner Brothers International Film Division, and they were interested. Then the SAG, sorry, this is a little long-winded, but it shows you the roller coaster it is of making a film. Then at Warner Brothers International, the SAG actor strike happened, and they were pushing all their big tentpole films like Barbie and Dune 2 and stuff into the next calendar year. So they were like, we got no money for you, sorry. So that was the third nail in the coffin. Then we went indie. So that what saved us. We went indie. So this is a Looney Tunes indie film. It really, truly is. We took our project, we went to Europe, and we found a European distribution company called GFM in the UK to take on the film. And they started selling the film to European markets, to Germany, to Italy, all around Europe. And eventually we had a screening in France, in Annecy, France, which is France has always been good to me in my whole career. This festival and animation festival in France, and it did really good at the festival. The screening went well. We got great press from Variety and Deadline, and we got Ketchup Entertainment stepped in and put the film out in the United States. It's nuts. And it's a Looney Tunes project, and nobody wanted it. It's wild. And then we got great reviews. We're like 90% on Rotten Tomatoes or 85%. We're doing great. So it's really really.
And what are you working on before we let you go?
Oh,
What are
right,
you working on right now?
Oh, currently I've since last summer I started bits and pieces of, but it's not an original project. I'm actually a head of story on a Aardman animation. You guys saw Vengeance
Wallace
Must
and Gromit.
Fall.
Yeah, we
Wallace
just
and
saw
Gromit.
yesterday. We had.
So I'm working with them on a new collaboration project they're doing with Pokemon. So it's a stop motion Pokemon project for Aardman. And I just got back from visiting England and Aardman, and my Wallace mug. And what a wonderful place. I mean, the craftsmanship and the beauty. I got to hold the puppets and see it and see all the stuff firsthand and meet all the people I've been working with for a year. I'm working via Zoom every morning. I have meetings, and I draw all day here in my office in my studio in Burbank. So but yeah, it's been really fun. Another dream come true is I get to work with Aardman. I've loved Aardman when I was living in Sag Harbor. My brother went on a business trip in England, and the Aardman films weren't out. And he got a PAL VHS tape of Aardman films, and he brought it home, and I wore it out. We transferred it at LTV. At LTV, we transferred it to VHS tape so I could watch it here, and I wore it out. So it's weird how things come around. And now I'm talking in Sag Harbor Cinema. So Really
Well,
cool. And thank you all. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
It's
Thank
really-
you. I hope we'll have you in person when you're here in the summer.
I would love to. Maybe we could do a little animation demo or something like that. It'd be fun. It'd be really cool.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. Congratulations again.
All right. Thanks, Sue. Thanks for coming, everybody.